to Horses, Hope, and Hustle, the podcast where faith leads, grit drives, and the Western way of life runs deep. I'm your host, Crystal Show, wife, horsewoman, entrepreneur, and believer that God doesn't waste the hard stuff. Around here, we talk real stories, big dreams, and the kind of hustle that's rooted in hope. So pull your hat down, pour that coffee, and let's ride. Today's episode, Redeemed and Rebuilt with Jaylene Scott, is about surrender, sobriety, and starting again. It's a story of finding God, doing the hard inner work, and turning a second chance into a business built on purpose. If you're building something after the breaking, this one's for you.
Hi, my name's Jaylene Scott. I'm the owner of the Ranchy Redhead. I grew up on a small town in Northern California on a ranch. I was very blessed to grow up in the agriculture world. And so grew up my parents cowboyed, we rodeoed, had sheep and cattle. And so I just developed this passion for agriculture and the Western way of life really early. And so I went to UC Davis, did livestock judging, had a corporate job, and God has taken me on this crazy journey of becoming an entrepreneur and self-growth. And so it's really cool to be here today. I'm excited to kind of dive into that, but that's kind of my background.
I love that. So I don't even want to say met you. I kind of stalked you after church. You got up and shared your testimony in church, and I was like, oh my gosh, that was absolutely incredible. And then we actually connected on social media, on Facebook.
I think that's the cool thing about social media is it allows you to connect with people a lot faster.
Yes. I love social media. People will go look at my Facebook and be like, hey, you're friends with so-and-so. Do you know? And I'm like, outside of Facebook, no, I don't know them, but they seem cool.
Cool content. So yeah, I want to be their friend.
So then we went to coffee the other day, and we talked about this earlier. We should have just recorded it then, because we talked everything for 2 hours.
I know, it was such a great conversation, and it's so cool. We were talking about finding like-minded people and having that connection, because when you're starting a business or growing in your faith or stepping out and doing things different, finding people that are in similar walks and can encourage that growth is such a key thing.
Yes, because I feel like it is, unless you have done it or are in it, it's really hard to relate to everybody else.
Everybody else thinks that you have lost your mind until it gets to go.
She cry.
I've just owned it at this point.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it, because you know what you want, you see the vision, and most of the time everybody else does not.
And I think that's the blessing, and it's something that is a foundational part of my business, is helping people take that vision and bring it to fruition, whether it's marketing or whatever. Let me help you, because it's hard. And I'm in my first year of business, you're on year 5, trying to get that vision to come to life is extraordinarily hard.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's really cool and important too when you can brand your business to your own beliefs. I think that's what's really neat about what you're doing, is you're hey, this is my story. Let me help you share your story.
Yes. And that's been the big thing for me, is God is such a key part in my life. And how can I incorporate God into my business and connect with those like-minded people? Because I heard a bunch of feedback earlier in the year about oh, you shouldn't bring God into your business. And God is the reason I started my business. Mm-hmm. And I have been on this walk of I'm going to share my connection with God and hope that I attract like-minded people.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. We did the same thing in the horse sales business. The side of all my business hats actually say Proverbs 21:31. And I mean, it's the verse, whatever, is the horse is made ready for the day of battle, but victory rests in the Lord. And from day one, I put that on my hats. And I'm even if I'm not openly, we're not posting tons of things maybe about our faith on our horse sales platform, but it is there. Yes. And people have loved that. All it is a tiny little thing. And it's made so many people go look that verse up. And it's how we incorporated horses with our faith. And So that's been kind of cool.
Well, we were talking about this the other day about like the seed and like planting that seed. And I feel like with everything that's happened in the world this year, people are hungry for God.
Yeah.
And like, if you're, in my opinion, if you're going to step out and start a business, if you're going to do big things, you've got to have big faith. And it's something like this year has been such a test in my faith, but like God has come through so many times. And it's like, okay, God, like, let me try to follow you a little better.
Let's talk about that, all that you have done this last year. Like, oh, here comes the crazy.
Yeah. Here comes the crazy. So I had worked on a ranch previously, and like some things had happened. And it's funny because I had got my LLC and like officially started my business last year, and like had a good couple months, and then life kind of went crazy and I couldn't balance both of them. And I felt like in 2024, God was like, you should go to Arizona. And it was just a whisper. And I was like, and I wasn't ready. And like, I didn't take the jump. And then like 2024, my entire life just
like I told you so.
It was like, and like some stuff happened right at the end. And so at the start of 2025, I like texted a friend I have down here and I was like, hey, like, do you think you could find me some part-time work? I want to start my business. And so she did. And I mean, I moved in 3 weeks.
Oh
like
my gosh.
3-bedroom, 3.5 bath house, condensed down, like jumped out and took a leap. And I'm really blessed. Like where I was at in Colorado, I had an awesome church, an awesome Bible study group, and they rallied around me with this move. I mean, everybody showed up and helped me and like prayed over me. And so I came down here for the end of the season last year and started like doing my photography and learning. And so I just kept hearing these like same states in my brain. And like I said, I had that big corporate job. I've always been the person with a plan, and I've always worked like crazy hours, and work has always kind of been the center of my life. And so God asked me to step out and do this. And I went on this crazy journey. I went to California and I was able to go to the Rock Cresta, which has like been a big goal of mine. I am a little younger than the guys who put it on, but I've watched it for the last 12 years. And I got to go watch it and kind of see, and I got to write a little piece on it, and it was just neat. And we had our first website client out there. And so I went out and I got to do my first county fair out there, and just like small steps in your business. And then I went to Idaho and went to Jordan Valley. And it's been cool because, yes, it's been about starting the business, but it's been more about serving. Like God has used me in so many areas. When I shared my testimony, I talked about my journey with alcohol and like some of the stuff that God's done in my life. And God, like, from stepping out and having this freedom of time and like freedom to move around, I was able to pray over friends in areas like where we had been drunk and like been really dark places. I was able to pray over friends. I went to a calf branding with a bunch of guys I didn't know. Like I was kind of a friend of a friend, got to go and got to share my testimony about like the health issues I had struggled with and kind of share some of the stuff I'd gone through. And then my aunt was fighting cancer. And so I went and spent 2 weeks with her in the spring, and then she passed away later in the fall. And so it was like, it's been a learning process in terms of starting a business. I don't know, like I tell this story and people are like, whoa, that's wild. But it was like, I kept following these like little whispers from God, and there was a lot of hard times and a lot of trials and challenges, but like I was able to kind of serve and have a lot of God moments too. And throughout that journey, it allowed me to find forgiveness for some of the stuff that had happened in my family and see different perspective. And so even though I was able to serve God, like God used it to grow my character like so much. And we were talking about this the other day. I feel like that stepping out and starting the business is like, it shows every character weakness. Like it's something God's going to use to develop you as a person.
Absolutely. I know I always felt like when you're following what God has in plan, like in store for you, even when you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Or you're like, hey, I have a bunch of bills lined up, no money in the bank. Like what the heck? And then all of a sudden it just seems like he always makes his way if you are truly trying to follow what you're called to do.
Yes. And we talked about that. And the other thing for me, it was like learning the times where things like didn't go the way that I planned, it was
Yeah.
because I wasn't listening.
Yeah.
Like, and I wasn't staying connected to him. And so there were definitely hard times, but it was one of those like, okay, you're not listening, so I'm going to redirect you to where you need to be.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's really neat that you were able to go to like those brandings, because I feel like the cowboy culture, alcohol is a huge thing. It is the norm. Like, and to be able to go there and be like, hey, and like have your testimony be heard, I think is huge, because I feel like it's kind of not always, but there's that taboo part of our cowboy culture that is like, no, thanks. I'm just gonna go drink a beer.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's been the cool thing for me about getting sober is, I grew up a cowboy. I've day worked my whole life, but like I grew up on a ranch. I've always been in that culture, and for a long time it felt, and it's kind of changing now. God's working on getting me in my femininity, but like for a long time, men were so much safer for me. And I process things like a man because like my dad was always the safer parent for me. So I wasn't always good at being a girl.
Yeah.
And so it's been one of those things like, yes, it's taboo, but when I made the decision to get sober, it opened the door. Like I saw so many people after me, like, and I tell people this all the time, like when you make those healthier choices for yourself, you open the door for other people to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's hard to transition from being like this independent, I can do everything woman, because that's truly, I mean, I was there too. We had this talk the other day. That's not how we're meant to be.
No.
Like our bodies, like we don't handle stress that way. We don't think that way. Like, and I know for me, when I quit drinking and I was able to kind of slow down the changes in my body, like even physical, like inflammation, like being easier to lose weight, my face cleared up. My face used to have like horrible acne, like, and it was insane to me how much that stuff cleared up when I did quit drinking. And I was like, okay, I'm not this big, strong, can do everything all the time, because then I hit a wall and I was like, okay, I can't do this anymore.
Well, and that was kind of what happened that led to me quitting drinking. Like my body was just like, no, you're done. And that was hard for me because I have always been the strong girl. Like I've always been the person who can put in a day's work, throw the big calves, like do all. That was one of the things about being a bigger girl. I had that strength that most women don't have. And to lose that was really hard. Like it was kind of in some ways an idol in my life, like being that strong, like independent person that I can just handle it. And God kind of took it away from me because he's like, I need you to learn to trust in me and rely on me. And it's been a journey, but the quitting drinking and your health thing is big.
I think too, learning to not have that numbing in your life, because for me, when we kind of touched base on this too, I would drink when I was sad or upset or mad or anything, even when I was happy sometimes. And then like, I would just drink to get numb. Yeah, I'm not even going to lie. Like, and to have to actually face what you were wanting to numb is not easy.
No. And like, it's really hard to sit with it, but it opens the door in your life. Like it gives you so much power back. And like the last few years have been extraordinarily hard, but if you look at the fruit that's come from the last couple years, like it's been amazing. I could have never, like we talked about this, I've lost close to 90 pounds. Like I couldn't have done that on my own. And it was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, it's hard, but it's worth like dealing with those things because it allows you to take your life back.
Yeah. Well, and the scary thing is truly like drinking or any kind of other bad habit, it might be fun in the moment and like the hangover sucks the next day, but you're just breaking your body down. Like it is not a long-term solution.
Well, and might be a little controversial, but like, I feel like you kind of, when you numb out of your life, you kind of become a zombie. You're not really living. And for me, it was like such a wake up call. Like, I want to live my life. And like, my life doesn't fit the societal norms anymore, but I'm working on building a life that feels good, not just look good. Because the hustle culture is just like, you got to have the 3-house, 2-bath, like white picket fence, like work crazy. And like, I had the corporate job, I had the leadership position, I had all this stuff, but I was miserable.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how can I build something that I can enjoy around my passions and build a different future? And I think that's a hard thing because society tells you, no, you have to, fit in this box.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And social media too. I think I love social media just because who knows how long it would have taken for us. I stood next to you at the freaking taco line. I did not recognize you till after, but I think that's the downfall to social media. I know I've seen that meme or whatever on social media of the apple standing in front of the mirror. And the front side, he looks perfect. And the back side, it's rotting. And I think that's the other thing of social media. And what makes it hard sometimes is it's like not everybody's life is what they make it look like on socials.
No. And that's one thing is like, because I have done like interviews with other business women and like I've written a lot of inspirational stuff. And it's funny, my writing actually when I started talked about like my journey. I was working with a personal coach, how to set boundaries, stuff like that. And it's something I try to talk about some of the hard stuff because people like you only see some of the good stuff. And like when we talked about my testimony, I went through an emotional breakdown 2 years ago. I wrote about the fact that in college, like I had struggled with thoughts of depression, suicide, stuff like that. And when I wrote entirely through this emotional breakdown I'm having, and people are like sending me messages like, I've never heard anybody talk about what I'm going through like that. And that's social media has us always comparing our lives to other people, and it always makes us feel like we don't measure up. And that's Satan, because like God made us each unique. Like he wrote us in the palm of his hand, and learning to find that validation in God and not feel like you're less than because you have these dark thoughts or your life doesn't look the way everybody else looks, or I don't know, it's been a crazy journey, but learning to have that safety and security in him has been such a gift.
Yeah, I love that. That's the exact reason I started this podcast, and I'd been wanting to do it for so long. It was like one of those, like God was like, hey, I need you to start this. And I was like, no, thanks. Not me. Someone else. Ask the next person. I'm good. Thanks. Because I went through a lot of terrible times, and it was like, sharing other people's story to be relatable, I think is such a powerful thing to do because, like you said, I feel like if people knew that others were going through it and still succeeding and still doing big things, they would maybe be more encouraged to do it themselves or realize like, hey, I'm not alone here,
Well, and realizing that your oil comes from the crushing seasons, like I can look back on all those dark times I went through in college and see where God protected me and God like redirected me to where I'm supposed to be. And so now like I've been same thing through some really hard things, but it's having that faith and connection. Now I'm like, I'm not alone.
I love that. I love that. So how did you get from California to Colorado originally?
So I had, as a sophomore in college, I started interning with this meatpacking plant, and I did like social media and marketing for them and worked in customer service. And so they offered me a job right out of college, and they said, work in customer service for a couple years, learn the company, and then you'll move up. You got a degree. And so a couple years had gone by, and I like sat down with one of the heads of the company. I'm like, hey, we're kind of getting to the point where I need to start. And he's like, would you be interested in going and checking out this different position in Colorado? And I was like, yeah. And within a month, I moved to Colorado, and my parents thought I was insane because I moved in January, which California to Colorado in January is not a good move.
Yeah.
But it ended up like being such a blessing. And I realize now like God used it to kind of separate me from the things I was involved. Not that I was involved in anything awful in Colorado, but he used it to send me to where he could draw me closer to him.
So then what was your position then in Colorado?
So I was a livestock manager for that packing plant. I have the weirdest resume when you look at it because I managed a team of 5. I did some sales. I did project management. I worked with maintenance. I did some work with the USDA. Like I gave tours, like pretty much anything you could do. I worked on so many different things there, which was cool because it gave me a really wide variety of experience.
Yeah.
And it was cool because I kind of got to grow up in that company. When I first started, it's an employee-owned company, and it really felt like a family. And so that was part of the reason I left, is like the culture kind of changed. But it was a great company for being like right out of college to have that kind of support.
Yeah.
So
how did you start getting into the church in Colorado? Or were you in any kind of church when you were in California? Did you grow up with any kind of?
So both of like my grandma on my mom's side and my grandparents on my dad's side were all like pretty devout believers, but my grandma on my dad's side was very fear-based. And so I had a couple bad experiences with her, and I was kind of like, if that's how God in the church makes you, I'm real good. I'm going to pass.
Yeah.
And so I had some religious trauma there. And I think that is one of the cool stories. So I had gone down to a town that was about an hour away from where I was living. When I moved to Colorado, I knew the people I worked with and one couple. Like, I had no friends. And so I was driving every weekend down to help those friends on this ranch. I'd go day work and help them. And we had partied Saturday night, like crazy. And then they're like, we're going to go to church the next morning. And I was like, and they're like, no, come on, come with us. And so this church is in the fairgrounds in Kiowa. And so I sit down in this metal chair and I'm hungover, like I'm not in good shape.
I cannot well.
And the preacher opens with religion ruins faith. And I was like, just that moment of like, ooh, because I had all this religious trauma with my grandma. And I was like, okay. And it just felt like that entire sermon was written for me. And it was like, okay, God, maybe this God, like, it wasn't like a seed at that point. It was like smack.
It was like a punch in the face.
Hey, I need you here to pay attention.
That's awesome. Oh, it is kind of funny now, like to just show up hungover and be like, okay, whoa.
Wait a second.
Well, I love that saying, God whispers, and if you don't listen, he yells.
Well, and I joke about that because, like, growing up a redhead, I'm kind of hard-headed, and like, God occasionally has to grab me by the ear and be like, "Hey, I wasn't kidding when I said it the first time."
Like, listen here, it's like this freaking blue heeler puppy I got out here.
100%.
Brian caught him with his shoe this morning, and he thumped him on the head with it. That little butthead just sat down and stared at him, and Brian goes, "Crystal, gentle parenting. The blue heeler is not working." Like, yeah, it's not.
It seems like it. Yeah. That's probably how God feels. 100% how God feels with me.
No more gentle parenting the redhead.
I feel like that's been a big part of this year, has been like, listen to my voice.
Have you seen Finding Nemo when Dory is swimming through the darkness and the light comes on? I don't know what made me think of that. That's hilarious. So anyway, back to the story. I told you, no structure on our podcast.
We just are going to have a good time and laugh. So hopefully everybody else gets that.
Oh. So did you continue going to that same church in Kiowa then?
Yeah. And so it was really cool. And I'm still friends with most of the people there. Like, I spent a couple years there and really grew in my faith. And I had some stuff happen. Like, I went through a breakup, and then like a friendship kind of blew up, and I decided God put a different friend in my life, and we started doing Bible studies, and we decided that we were going to get baptized together in 21, because like my life had just it had been real rough. And I was like, okay, God, like I'm ready to try it your way. And so in 2021, I got baptized in that church.
Oh, cool.
And so I continued to kind of grow in my faith. And then in I think it was the summer of 2022, I had a job change, and I went to work on a big ranch in Eastern Colorado. And it was hard because the only day off I had really was Sunday. And during the summer, sometimes we had Saturdays, but in the wintertime, like there was a lot going on. So, and that church was right next door. So it made kind of more sense for me to go there. And the pastor there was just so in the word and connected to God. And he really helped me kind of mature in my faith in terms of like getting a better relationship with the Bible and like developing that love for the word, because before that I was kind of like marshmallow fluff and sunshine and rainbows, that's a part of growing in your faith.
Yeah.
But I needed that encouragement to get in my Bible, and that church was just so powerful. And there was a women's Bible study that actually ran through a different church, but I got invited to it, and that Bible study group like helped me so much, just like gave me a safe place to heal with women, and just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So how did you get in with church at Rancho?
So when I came down here last year, I had just come at the end of the season. I had started going to church at Rancho. And this summer I was talking to my friend because I had had a bunch of stuff happen, and I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And she goes, with what you're doing, maybe you should reach out to Pastor Scott and see if they could use your skill set. And so I did. And they were like, we've actually been like looking for somebody for that position. So it worked out really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Because I was wanting to serve God. Like the whole part of this journey has been like wanting to grow closer and allow God to work through me. And I'm in that season of singleness. And so I'm like, God use me.
Yeah.
And so that kind of worked out pretty good.
Yeah. I think that's so important. It was super heavy on my heart lately because I was 5 years single. Like I was previously married, divorced during COVID. And then for a little over 5 years, like single, figuring it out. And that was not easy.
No. Well, and I think I told you this the other day. I got baptized and I was like, cool, so one of the things like before I quit drinking is like, I decided when I got baptized, I was going to be celibate. And so I was like, cool, God, 6 months, you're going to send me my husband. This is going to be real great. Here we are almost 5 years later. And God's like, sweetheart, we have some work to do. And so he's done, and it's been good because I come from a line of women who grew up being raised like men and never learned to value themselves as women, and like overworking themselves and pushing themselves to their breaking point. And like in your 20s you can do that. In your 30s your body is like you can't do that anymore. And I still struggle. Like I tend to use overworking as a crutch. Like whenever my life goes crazy, I throw myself into work, and I'm trying to learn how to back out of that and like learn to rest and learn to take better care of my health. But that was kind of, I don't know, the crazy part of the journey.
Yeah. It's funny how you think, I remember when I first like got single, people were like, oh, like a year or two, you'll be remarried. No.
And I feel like God sends you like situations where you have to learn to set boundaries, and you have to learn to like trust your discernment. And I did all this personal coaching, and that was such a big blessing. And I don't know if it was from God or what, but there was a relationship where it was like, we're going to test all of that. And it was just one of those things where I just realized, like, back to the celibacy. And I know it's kind of a taboo topic in this day and age because our culture is so
normalizes.
Yeah.
It's hookups and all of that.
Yes. It's just society is so over sexualized with everything, whether advertisements, whatever it is. And like, for me, God has shown me like the power of like, he created that for marriage. And there's a reason, like, that connection is not supposed to be outside of marriage because it messes with your heart. And it's because he loves us and wants to protect us. And my opinion and perspective is God's a girl dad. And like, he wants to like keep us safe and teach us to value ourselves and teach us how to walk differently. And it's not easy.
No, it's not easy at all. What I learned though, like during my single time, just focusing on myself because I was the problem.
People do not want to, like, you hear people blaming other people, and it's like when you start to work on yourself, you're like, yeah, I'm the problem.
Yeah. Or even like when you have your own issues, it's incredible what you allow in others too. Like how you allow to be yourself to be treated in certain ways. And it's like, no, let's work through your own nonsense, not like to better yourself, but to also kind of raise the standards in what you accept into your life.
Yes.
Even in relationships, friendships, business, everything. We kind of talked about that the other day too.
And it's hard. It's something that, because, you know, you get tired and you get stressed and you fall back into old habits. And it's something that I've been working on. Like, how can I set the standard no matter what environment I'm in? And I'm not trying to put like that pressure or perfectionism in it, but like, how can I show up better?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is like 90% of problems, I think, in the world are communication and the fact that we all see the world through our own biases.
Yes.
And learning to question your perception is such a power move.
Yes.
Because when you start to question it, like, you're going to expand your mindset.
Mm-hmm. I think that using your single season, I don't want to say to your advantage, but kind of, to better yourself, it just betters a lot of things down the road.
Yes. And then hopefully you attract somebody who's also working on themselves. We were talking about this the other day. Like, there's no such thing as perfection. You're not going to get a perfect person. But if you can find somebody that's working on themselves and working on that relationship with God, because I read Di's book, and now I'm reading Pastor Scott's book. And it's one of those things, like, they've been married for 40 years. And like, you see where, like, when they put God in the center of their marriage, like, they were able to work through some things. And that's the working on yourself and God and working towards, like, that is, like, reading their stuff, I was like, such a power thing.
Yeah. I know when Brian and I met, we kind of talked. We met and went on our first date on February 5th and got married July 26th. We less than 6 months. And I do believe we met, and I think the whole be with someone who's equally yoked as you. And that can mean a lot of different things. That doesn't mean like I'm better, someone who's better than you or not, but like equally yoked. And when we met, we had lived a lot of life. We met when we were 31 and everything just worked. But I truly believe is because like we were solid in who we were when we met. And we knew, like, we both knew what we wanted. We both knew we were willing to work through it. And we did it. It wasn't easy. We still had things to work through, even though that's what we wanted. And I think that's huge. And to be able to take advantage of your single season. So when the right person does come along, it just works.
And it's funny that you mentioned that, because I feel like I've gone through a crazy pruning season, but like, I've learned who I am.
Yes.
And not through the like conditioning of my family, or not through the conditioning of like my job experience. Like, who is Jaylene? Like, what are, and like learning to have that security in God, because our world is so validation based. And like, I feel like that's what happens. Like, people get married and they don't know who they are. And then, they start to change. And I'm not, obviously I've never been married. I'm not making assumptions there, but like learning to find that identity in God first, I think helps so much.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all human too. We're constantly changing. Our core maybe, or on our foundation may stay the same, but like we're all going to change a little bit through the years, no matter what.
And you should be, like, if you're growing and working on yourself, you should be changing.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. How do you think, or I guess, how long ago did you I feel like my mind like had one question and then it just like split into two questions. Okay, business. So when did you get to fully dive into the Ranchy Redhead media?
So kind of when I was working on it when I was down here last year, just kind of trying to get a feel for it, because I knew I wanted to do sale horse media and brand photography, because I'd done some of the brand photography, and I've done portrait photography on the side since high school. I bought a camera in high school. I had a photography teacher who kind of nurtured it because I couldn't draw and there was only 2 art classes. And so I wrote for the school newspaper and then did some photography there. And so when I came down here last year, I was kind of getting a feel for it. Like, I had my website set up, and then this summer I kind of dove into it. And so it's been cool because I have a partner I work with and we built some websites. And so it's been helping people create their visions, like helping farmers and ranchers build that online presence, like if they're doing direct to market beef. And I'm growing in the sale horse thing. I really enjoy that. And that's kind of where I want to go. I have a passion for performance horses. I worked with those racing quarter horses on that ranch. That was my role. And so I love to study genetics, and I'm just hoping God continues to use this journey to kind of tie it together.
Yeah. So how did you get from the meat packing plant and the ranching to photography and social media? How did that tie together?
Well, it's funny because the meat packing thing I kind of just fell in during college. I was
Yeah.
interning for that company, and when my life blew up in college, like vet school became like I had a dream of going to vet school, and that dream kind of got jerked away from me. And so the meat packing thing was kind of just, graduate, need a job. Like,
Yeah, fair.
corporate path looked, the corporate path looked good when I was initially out there, but I was miserable commuting into downtown Denver. Like, I hated being in the office all the time. And so the ranching thing was kind of, I had mentioned to one of my buddies that I was like, I'm starting to look for a different job. And he called me and he's like, hey, I think you should call on this job. And I was like, there's no way a ranching position is going to pay enough for me to want to go.
Yeah.
And it was funny because like when you sat down and calculated it all out, it ended up being pretty similar to and it just like worked out. It was a weird, again, I think it was a God thing because
that got you to the church eventually.
Well, I was going to the church when I had the corporate job.
Okay.
So I have always day worked. And so I was day working on the weekends when I had that corporate job. And so the ranch thing, though, I think God needed to isolate me to work on me. Like, because I lived on that ranch. I was a mile back in the creek on a dirt road. I had this house to myself, and I worked with, there was a family, but they had the other ranch. And so it was me and one other person essentially on the home ranch. And so that isolation season gave me the opportunity to heal and really work on myself. And I needed that.
Yeah. I believe God will isolate you to elevate you. Like, I strongly believe that.
Yes.
Because I think no matter where you are, we are so influenced by the environment and the people around us. That's just, again, we're human. And like, we kind of mentioned earlier, pruning those people and finding the right people, iron sharpens iron and all the things that they say. It's, if you're not in the right group, I think he will find a way to take you away from all of that you're comfortable. So you have to figure it out.
And that's, I think, been the hard thing for me is like, cowboying has always been such a huge part of my life. And like, God is working on me to be more feminine. And so he's kind of pulled me away from it. And I understand it's probably not a permanent thing, but like, not when that has been like such a big part. And it's like, I think, and I've heard it, like Pastor Scott talked about, like, he said, I'll give up horses if I have to, God. And then now he gets to rope and stuff like that. God gave it back to him. And that's one of the things where it's like, okay, God, teach me how to be healthier. And then, but it is surrounding yourself with the right people.
Absolutely. I can't remember who it was, some team roper that won some big team roping. I don't even know who it was, but I didn't know he is a pastor. And so he gets to go rope at all these big ropings and then gets to just share the word of God along the way. And he mentioned that in his little ESPN interview thing at the end. And I was like, oh, that's so cool.
Yes.
I think that he finds a way if you're following your calling.
Yeah.
Trey Johnson, when he came in, was the guest pastor, speaker, or whatever they're technically called at church. And then he went to Vegas and was roping out there. I was like, wow.
Well, and hopefully God uses those passions to open the door to other people so we can minister. Because that's what I think, like, I talked about the branding. It was the only branding I got to go to this year, but I got to share my testimony. And I think that's also like one of the gifts he's given me is I can see things from the male perspective and I can see things from the female perspective because I lived so heavily in my masculine energy or in the masculine world for so long. And sometimes that's hard, but it's like also gives me the opportunity because, I do have that feminine. I can be a little softer. And when you're talking about hard things, sometimes.
Yeah. So now that you're about a year into business, right?
February will be.
Yeah.
Close.
What are some things that have came up you were not expecting to happen? Hang tight. We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to us by Big Sky Horse Sales. From Montana to Arizona, Big Sky is your trusted online auction platform for quality rope, performance, ranch, barrel, and trail horses. Check out our Wickenburg online sales series December through March. Shop current consignments and stay tuned for the 2026 sale lineup, or contact us today to book your custom event at bigskyhorsesales.com. Big Sky Horse Sales, built on trust, backed by quality.
When you take your like first big loss on a project,
yeah,
because I do a lot of footwork and try to get ahead of things to make sure things operate. And I don't want to say I'm a control freak because I'm learning to surrender to God, but I am very much I am the person that overcomes problems to make stuff. And that was really hard for me because it was something that I thought was going to be very straightforward, like should have been. And it was a great learning lesson. And I think sometimes you got to take a good whack first, right off the bat, because it teaches you how to play smarter and how to, like I told you the other day, I'd rather take that loss right off the bat and learn from it and show up better down the road. And so that was hard. And then learning how to take care of myself and navigate stress, because I like went through some stuff where stress got really bad, and then I fell back into like bad habits and my body was not. And so it's like, how can I show up? I think we talked about this the other day. How can I show up like the person I want to be?
Yeah.
And take care of myself and just build on that foundation of who I'm trying to be.
Yeah. When you're the boss, you have to be able to set your own boundaries. And it's hard when you are like a workaholic and you're like, no, I can get everything done today. It's like, no. Again, like your body can't handle that either.
Yeah. And like prioritizing rest. And it's just every weakness you have will be exposed by starting a business and like learning how to have better self-discipline and better communication and grace and how to approach different people. Like, I managed a team of 5 for close to 5 years. You think your leadership skills are really sharp, and then you deal with different dynamics of people. How can I, support my clients better? It's just such a lesson in every area of life.
Well, and when you're a business owner, you're not just the business owner. You're also every flipping thing else out there.
Yes. And like figuring out how to get organized and handle things. And I was talking to another entrepreneur last night, and we're kind of, she's going into her second year, and we're talking about some stuff, and I was like, okay, so it's normal to feel like this.
Yeah, it's normal. I know sometimes when I talk to my friends about the stress of it, because the other thing too, like even the financial side of it, when you built a business from scratch, that's how we were. I've never had investors. I was straight out of a divorce. I had a couple $100 in my bank account. Like I have never had somebody to financially back my business. And even that part of it, it's like, if we take a loss, there's still bills to pay.
Yeah.
If we, mess up like we still have to move forward tomorrow to keep, doing what we're doing, keep growing, keep helping the other clients. You can't let a setback hold you back for very long. You have to be constantly forward thinking. You have to, says a lot.
Well, and we were talking about big faith and big things. And I think there's all this like noise out there about like investors are easy to get. Like you can get these grants, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that is not the case when you initially start out. And same thing, I didn't have any, financial backing. And it's been God's been showing me how to steward better. And how do you steward better? And also, I think he's been showing me, hey, no matter what happens, you're still okay.
Yes.
Like I was joking the other day, you're not on fire, Ricky Bobby.
It is hard to convince yourself of that sometimes.
Well, and especially if you've gone through trauma, like I had a bunch of financial trauma, and it was like I went back through all of that stuff, and it was like God being like, hey, I still got you. I still got you. And it was one of those things where it's like, I've always had the high paying job. I've always had this, and like not having that was a different life experience for me, but it taught me to have that reliance on God.
Yeah. I told you the other day, I've always joked, like, God's my homie. He's got my back. Because he always made a way. Even I can list off all these times where I'm like, oh my gosh, freaking out, in this house alone. I am paying rent, a truck payment, a trailer payment, feeding horses, feeding dogs, trying to feed myself, all these things by myself. And I'm like, I was relying like you, I jumped right into my business. My business was my sole income from the beginning. And so it's been very interesting, but I always am like, I have nothing else to rely on other than God coming through for me because this is what he told me to do.
Well, and that's, I think, something because I have done both. There's been months where I went just all in on my business, and then I took some steps back. And I guess that would be one of the big lessons that I would share with people jumping into business is there is going to come a point where you have to jump in certain areas and you'll know the push, but also there's times to step back. Like when I was going through all that stress this summer, I slowed down, picked up some different work, and allowed myself to physically get back together. And Pastor Zach from that church that was next to the ranch told me this. He said, if a decision is from God, it will come with peace and it won't feel rushed. And this is where I feel like I messed up. I had 2 part-time job offers when I left here last year where I could have been learning from not older, but people who have been in their business longer, owners, and continued to build without the stress and would have had some security. And both of them were like good, godly families. And I didn't take that opportunity because I felt like I needed to push super hard. And so we're all on our own journey, but that is something that I would say is pray about it and wait for God. Make sure that you have peace in the decisions, because every time I felt like I had to rush or I had to force it, it blew up.
Yeah.
When I went in God's timing and stayed connected to him, and he taught me so much, because I didn't I had the corporate job, I had the marketing in the background, but nobody tells you about the differences. You think you walk in, oh, I have everything I need.
Yeah.
And you there's a reason God called you to it, but sometimes when he asks you to slow down a little bit, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it's also learning to walk in faith and not fear, because there's going to be different seasons for everything. And like you said, you were able to make that your sole income and work. And I think that's very powerful. And there's been, like I said, different things, but just listening to God in your walk.
Yeah. Yeah, I really do believe if you are willing to listen to him, he will keep. I know for me, 2025 was my year. And it's not a brag, but for 5 years, I pushed and pushed and pushed, but I wouldn't quit drinking. I was like, no, this is my crutch. I need this. I need it. That was what I was convinced of. And we went out New Year's Eve, and it was 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm hugging a tree in Wyoming, puking my guts out. It's freezing. It's so cold outside. Probably, I don't even know how cold it was. I was drunk, but I'm puking my guts out. And I'm like, okay, no, this is it. I'm doing dry January because I have a problem. And I did dry January and met Brian in February. And even after that, when I completely gave into him, because I feel like that was my my thing. You need to give up alcohol. And don't get me wrong, Brian and I will still have a drink at dinner. It's not we're completely we don't have alcohol in our house. We don't. I used to drink every single night. It was a daily thing for me. And now I crave it with dinner once in a while.
Yeah.
I think it's more of a social thing, but I'm I can have one and be done. And I never was like that before. But so alcohol was my thing, because I was hey, God, I'm listening to you and you're still isolating me. You're still I'm still struggling here. My business, I actually ended up taking on, it's called the Nile. I took on another horse program because financially I was man, this is getting so tough. And because coming down here is not cheap.
Yeah.
Living in Wickenburg is amazing, but it's not cheap. And so I took that other deal on. But then after I quit drinking, it was okay, you listened. And now, I met Brian, we got married, my business exploded, and like the Nile was an absolute success, and all of these things boomed. And I do believe like that was it. It was kind of like January was like, okay, I'm done. I have been trying, but I have not been 100% in. I was like 99%.
Well, and that's the obedience and the steps you take and that's the hard thing, is learning to be obedient, like learning to follow some of that stuff and learning to say no. And I struggle with that. Like, how do I prioritize things? And I think that's the other thing, is like, it's going to happen in God's timing. You've been in business for 5 years now, right?
Yep.
And so you're really hitting your grind, but like that's what they say. Most small businesses take close to 5 years to really get rolling. And so having that grace with yourself, because I'm the kind of person who, back to that, I will make it happen.
Yes.
And sometimes it's learning to have that grace with yourself that it's God's timing.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, being happy with where you are and realizing, I know for me, I have always been an overachiever. That's like childhood trauma made me like be this like perfectionist. Like, you have to be doing the most. That's how I was conditioned to be. And I think that you need to learn to be happy with where you are, even if you're constantly raising the bar. Because I realize, like, looking back now, I'm like, man, all those times I was so down on myself, I wasn't doing near as bad as I thought, but I had raised the bar. Like, I had reached one goal, but I had already set the next one. It was already like, instead of acknowledging like, oh, wow, good job. We're happy here. We're doing great. Now we'll go to the next one. It was like, I was always skipping the happy step. Like, you're not doing enough. Do more.
Well, and learning to be okay. This has been the big one for me, is like I said, I always had the like high powered, cool, even that ranch job, I got to work with some pretty high end horses. And so it was like, I always had this, and like learning to be okay with your life looking weird to the outside. Because I mean, people, no matter what you do, people are going to judge. Like, we all see the world through our perspective, but like learning, like you said, being okay and finding gratitude and finding your joy with where you're at is such a powerful thing. And what it is finding the security in God.
Yeah.
Because that's it was really hard there for a while, because like I've had friends say some stuff, I've had family say some stuff, and it was just like, it was Satan attacking me. Because when you step out to follow God, like, he doesn't want you to walk in your calling. He doesn't want you to walk in your purpose and walk for God. And so learning to have that, like, it's okay to just be present and take it one day at a time.
Yes. Yes. What's crazy to me too is when you're in the struggle, kind of going back to the people you're surrounded by, once you like come out of that, it's insane the negative things that you will get to when you're at your happiest. And the people who are not equally yoked, I guess you could say, that was one thing that surprised me this year, is the friends that not saying they just were like, screw you, I'm done with you. But it was definitely like, I started getting happy and they were like, yeah, I don't like this, Crystal. And it's like, man, that's hard. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Well, and misery loves company. And when you start to elevate, like, you're not miserable anymore. And hopefully, like, you doing better for yourself leads by example and inspires those people to do it. But it's hard, especially when they're people that you have loved and been through a lot with. And it's like one of those things where you just realize, like, we talked about this, a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Like, some people are meant to teach you certain lessons in life, and having faith in God. And my coach said this to me this year. She said, sometimes you have to surrender those relationships and let them go. And if they're meant to be in your life, they'll come back around and it'll be healthier.
Yeah. What was that Tupac quote that we came up with the other day? Oh, just because you lost me as a friend doesn't mean you gained me as an enemy.
Well, and that's such a powerful thing, because like, I want to see you win, but I also am going to take care of myself.
Yes.
Because I think we were talking about this the other day too, is like, I'm a person who believes there's plenty of room at the table. And not everybody's like that.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be around the scarcity minded people especially in your first year of business, and maybe that's a building thing. And it's not that you don't love them, it's not that you don't pray for them, but like surrounding yourself with people who think there's room at the table is huge.
Yeah. Well, and when you're on that path of entrepreneurship or getting deeper into your faith or whatever that may be, it's hard enough to stay on that path, let alone trying to stay on the path with the outside noise like of your circle being so negative.
Yeah.
And I don't care who it is, family, friends, relationships. It's so hard to stay on that when there's the little nagging all the time.
And I think that's back to the reason the season of a lifetime, like getting focused. My financial advisor said this. She's like, she has a group of girlfriends and she told them when she started her business that give me 5 years. Like, I'm going to be a ghost for 5 years. I'm not going to be able to show up the same. But after those 5 years, like, I'm going to take us on a trip. I'm going to do this. Like, and she set that goal for herself. And I think that sometimes is also the communication is like, showing up for people has always been such a thing for me that I've always put my wishes on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's like starting a business, like you have to, and I still struggle with it. That is probably one of my, it's a gift and it's a character flaw at the same time. And like if you're going to do big things, you've got to stay focused and keep driving forward. And you still love on people, you still pray for them, but continue with the forward momentum.
Yeah. You have to protect your energy because I mean, when you're pouring that energy into bettering yourself, into building a business, building something, doing big things, it's hard to either take on other people's bad energy or be using so much of your energy on maybe a situation you can't help or, something that is not aligning with your goals. You can't be using your energy on someone else's chaos and, stuff like that. And it is tough to draw that line. Be like, I'm sorry, I love you, but I don't have the energy. That's where I got with my friends. I love them. But when they like come to me, just how friends are like, hey, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you're going through something right now. I don't have the energy to give to this. Like, I will call you tomorrow. And anymore, me and my best friends, we just kind of have that code. And we hardly even have to say it out loud anymore. It's like, okay, I'll call you tomorrow. I'm not going to, I don't want to say burden you with my problems, but I can tell you already are at your limit. Yes. And that's so nice to have those kind of people around you too, that can pick up on that.
Well, and communicating that, because it's funny that you say that, like having that code of like, hey, like I'm at my bandwidth. My best friend back in Colorado, we call them broccoli nights because both of us can be very introverted and we used to get Chinese food and just not talk to each other and
I love that.
Watch shows because like we both had just hit our limit of people. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just hard when you're like, and especially like starting a business requires a ton of energy. And like, how do you, like you said, how do you protect your energy? And it's like, I will love on you. I will pray for you, but I can't. And I think it's also something for me is like something I'm working on is how do you not dump on people? Like, I am not the greatest at journaling and some of my writing used to be part of getting it out, but like, how do I not dump on other people as much? And because it's not always fair to other people to dump that. And I think sometimes it becomes an excuse to not deal with your problems. And this is my opinion, and I might catch some flack, but I'll take it, is, we dump and we vent the problems and then we don't deal with them. And I called myself out on this the other day. I was like, oh,
that was so funny when we were at coffee and you're like, okay, I just called myself out on a lot of things.
And I went and had the hard conversation and it like cleared up the like entire issue. And it's like having those, back to not numbing out, having those hard conversations creates peace.
Yes.
Like dealing with the issue. And I struggle with this because I didn't like growing up. It wasn't safe. To disagree in some aspects or like have differing opinions, and so you get in that like, oh, I'm scared. But like when you leave stuff, it festers, and so that's been and how you communicate. Like my coach has taught me a lot about like, how you communicate and what you talk about, and it does make such a difference in how things get addressed. But it's something I'm like praying all the time, like, God, please let me like communicate better and address these issues and not let them fester.
Yes. I like what Alex Hormozy says, and I feel like it applies to a lot of life. But he says in business, what you ignore controls you, essentially.
Yes.
And I think it's so true. And even going and venting to other people, sometimes too, they're going to project their own issues that have nothing to do with the topic at hand. You know, they're going to project those issues onto that conversation. And then it's going to create a whole different thing. And, you know, then your brain's going to go down a whole different, or, you know, blow this thing up that absolutely was just a mustard seed to begin with.
Well, and I think that's the hard thing about starting a business is we were talking about like, you've got to follow your own inner compass, and you've got to be careful about venting about your problems, because people who are not on the entrepreneurial track will operate in a lot of fear and speak a lot of fear over your business. And I got to the point, like, when I was going through some of the trials, I'm like, I don't want to hear it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fighting this already. I don't need that fear spoken over my business. Speak faith over me, speak power. And like, I was very lucky that God sent me into a group that like believed I could do it and pushed me and like helped me develop some of those tools. And like, God put me around faith-based people. But I think that applies to everything in life.
Yes.
Marriage, kids, like whatever you're doing. And I try to watch my speech now. Like, yes, if I see a giant red flag, I'm going to say something.
Absolutely.
But how do I not speak fear? And like, I pray over things all the time. And I've had to, one of the things God worked on in me is surrendering things to him this year, because, you know, you always want to try to do things in your power. You want to be the fixer. And like, I took some pretty heavy hits because of that. And like, how do I pray over this situation? How do I surrender this situation to God? How do I speak faith over it instead of fear? And we all fight fear.
Yeah.
This isn't a dig at anybody, but I think it's something people need to think about, is like how, especially if you are stepping out on your entrepreneurial journey and you don't have the backing, you don't have the investors, surround yourself with big faith people.
Yeah. I know before I even came to Arizona, when I came to Arizona, it was major isolation for me because I didn't know anybody down here. It was me, my little wiener dog, and my stud colt. We came from Montana, didn't know anyone. I ended up camping actually with a Canadian couple in Fort Paw. The first place I went didn't work out. I was there for like a month before I moved with some strangers, and it ended up being the greatest thing ever. But that was something that was so incredibly hard for me when I was getting started. I was really the first one in my family to make any kind of living in the horse industry. We grew up on horses, but I remember we bought a $1,500 horse once, and I thought my dad was going to murder me and my mom. I sold a horse for $1,200, and I remember it was my senior year in high school. My dad's like, "You'll never sell her." And I did. And so it's been tough because everyone I grew up with, they couldn't see the vision.
Yeah.
And I sacrificed a lot. I missed family stuff. I haven't gone and seen family that live far away. Everything that I made, I poured back into horse shows and my business. And like, I saw the big picture, but it was very tough because there were a lot of people closest to me that said a lot of hurtful things. And I was like, I'm really sorry, but I can't have you on this part of my life.
That's been the wild thing for me, because I was kind of the opposite. Like, when I had the corporate job and I just didn't go home. Like, I just worked, and that emotional breakdown, like I not cut ties, but like I pulled back from my family really hard for almost 2 years. And that's been a gift. This year is like, God has kind of turned it around, and it's a cycle. Like, I'll go through a cycle, but it's been a weird thing is like, God has kind of planted that seed back in my heart of like, family is important.
Yes. And
it is hard because we've both been talking about like, the people closest to us is who Satan uses to attack us. And that's very hard. But I do think that is been different experiences, different journeys. But the kind of cool thing is like, I was very opposite. Like I had completely isolated from my family for a long time, and God's been working on me not to be so hard-headed. So I keep praying about that because it's hard to figure out how to balance your goals, family, like how to do any of that.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing is learning to listen to God, because whenever we get too far one way, he'll course correct us.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is kind of the whole season thing too. If you can learn what the purpose of this season is, it's going to help elevate you. It's going to help bring more joy and peace to yourself.
Yes.
Rather than constantly fighting, like, what is, like, this shouldn't be like this.
Well, and that's, I think one of the major things he's been working on me in is like, I was such a fighter and such a survivor and like so independent because I just grew up with this mentality that I had to be strong for everybody in life. I was just so calloused and hard. And God is learning to like, how do you be softer? How do you have more grace with people? Like, and it's not that you can't speak your truth. Like there are moments that I will speak my truth, but I pray for like forgiveness and grace. I still have that redheaded temper, but how do I let him fight my battles? How do I surrender that to him? Because it's hard, and I have messed up a lot of things in my life. Like letting my temper and stuff get a hold of me. And that's one of the things is like, he's going to work on whatever, like he's going to use your business to work on whatever in you he wants to work on.
Yeah. And I think it's cool because no matter what your business is, mine is a horse sale company and we reach a lot of people. Sometimes I like look at the insight things on our social media and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Like, how many people looked at our what? Like, I'm just like a small town Wyoming girl that everybody's like, she'll never make it in the horse world. And I'm like, I think I'm making it. I don't know.
But I love that because what a powerful testimony, because, like that's what Satan tries to tell us is like, you're not going to, and like you're 5 years in and look where it's taking you.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing. It's like, don't let Satan tell you that you're not enough.
Yeah. Well, what has been the most rewarding part of my journey is, we built this horse sales platform and now I'm in this really odd place because my life has changed a lot this year where I'm not in that hustle anymore. I don't want to wake up at 5 a.m. and work until 10 o'clock at night. I don't want that. Like, I started the podcast and it's just been a complete passion project for me, but I'm in this weird spot of like, this needs to keep growing, but in the time I invested in it, it has opened more opportunities and doors for me than I ever could have imagined. And, even this podcast is new. The people that listen to the podcast because of the business I built and then text me and they're like, oh my gosh, I needed to hear this. That's what's been the coolest thing for me. And, the little things, the little messages or little pieces of my faith I have been able or did put out on social media through our horse sales platform, the response that it got was like, wow, this is awesome. Like we are building such an incredible network. And like, yeah, we've sold some horses and we hit big goals in sales. And it's all just kind of like, that part's just like, yeah, that's cool.
It's cool.
But like the networking is what is the coolest to me and been like the most rewarding is the people that I have gotten to meet. And like, it's just crazy because we were starting a horse sale company and did everything else along the way. And it was like, wow, that was neat.
Well, and it's funny that you said that because that I think has been the like mind-blowing thing for me is like when you step outside of the box, it opens so much opportunity. Like the people I have met this year, I would have never met them if I hadn't stepped out, like you're going to go through some serious pain points, but it fast tracks things in a lot of areas.
Yeah.
And just having that faith that God's going to send you the right opportunities, like the right people. I pray over that all the time. Like God send me the right people. Because those are the people that help you grow, help you figure out how to do. And sometimes he will send you somebody that is going to challenge and make things difficult. So you see things that you need to improve. But I think that's something that I pray all the time. Send me the right people. And like, that's what I would encourage people. Stepping out and taking this journey, you are going to like broaden your horizons in so many ways.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's really neat because, someone might have came to you to do business and then ends up just speaking nothing but praise on your name. As nothing, like they don't say anything about your business, but like, she is such a great person. I think I love that. And I think those connections, that's probably what keeps me going. Because there have been some times where I'm like, I'm done. Actually, I was crying to my friend Charlotte at the Colorado Horse Sale the other day. I'm like, can I sell it? Can I sell the company, Charlotte? I just want a podcast. That's like what I love right now.
Well, and it's weird also too, like how God uses to open different doors, because he probably used you starting the business to help you get to like the podcast.
Absolutely. It definitely is what because like I said, it was 2 years before I started the podcast that I was like telling just very few close friends, like, I want to start a podcast. And everybody was like, do it. And I'm like, no, nobody wants to listen to me. That's somebody else needs to do that. That's somebody else's job. I'll just not do that.
Well, and it's so weird to because I've done some YouTube interviews and stuff like that, like to hear yourself back and people don't talk about that either. Like, it's hard to be visible.
It is.
And because I've gone through seasons of that, and I'm hoping I'll get to the point where I can be more consistent, because I'll be really visible and really open, and then I'm like, ooh, I gotta come back, gotta hide for a minute, gotta recharge the batteries.
I know when I first started Big Sky Horse Sales, I was like, I would always hide behind the company name. I'm like, nobody needs to know what's going on. And then honestly, our social media just kind of tanked. And I was like, what is happening? We have nice horses, we're getting results. What the heck? I started putting my face on there and everybody's like, we want to do business with you because of a stupid Facebook video. I'm like, oh my gosh. And so that was a huge fear for me to overcome. And I think a lot of that was because I was like, if I put my face on my business, people are going to know who failed. If something goes, or when. It's not if in business. You're going to have things that don't work. That just is what it is, But I think it's huge. The person that can keep failing, keep putting themselves out there, they're going to succeed. They're going to make it, or something else even better is going to work out for you.
Yes. And when you have that mentality that God is working it all out for your good,
mm-hmm.
and that's the thing is I talked about the writing, because my writing had taken off, and then I had that emotional breakdown and I wrote about it. And it was I felt like I stood up and got naked in front of thousands of people. And so I just shut down visibility wise. But it is that and this is part of my business, is helping you build that brand, because your face is that brand, and you build that personal connection. And here's the thing I know with my brand: I'm a redhead, I'm spicy, I'm a pusher, I'm gonna make things happen. I'm not for everybody.
Yeah.
And so by sharing who you are, you connect with the right people.
Absolutely.
And hopefully God brings me, people fired up on faith and and I'm open to everybody. Come on, I'll love on you. I'll pray for you. Bring it on. But by sharing who you are and building that connection, you're bringing the right people to your brand.
Absolutely. Yes, I love that. I feel like everybody has some type of inspiration, even when they don't. I mean, my husband was on the podcast last week, and he was born without a left hand. He welds, he team ropes, he does everything. And I had to. Okay, I conned him into being on the podcast. I asked him a lot of times and he kept telling me no. And I was like, no, I won't accept no.
I'm gonna keep.
And so we're in the truck going to Wyoming. He couldn't get away from me. I pulled out my podcast mic and I was like, I don't have any. And I conned him. I was like, I don't have anybody for this week's episode. I need you. And he's like, no. He was so mad at me because he's like, I'm not an inspiration. And I was like, you really are. How many people? And it's funny because I made a TikTok about him, and people are reaching out to me who also lost an arm or a hand or whatever. And it's insane how much inspiration or light you really have in yourself. And if you just let it go, somebody out there's going to relate to that.
Well, and it's funny because I lost that cowboy friend earlier this summer, and he had been through 2 hellacious horse wrecks, been in a coma 3 months each time, 2 separate times, and relearn to rope, and could read cattle, and just his body would sometimes fail him, but mentally he was there. And I'd tell him that all the time. I was like, when I grow up, I want to be like you. And he's would just roll his eyes and laugh at me. But I'm the grit it takes to stand up and keep fighting and showing up and not quit, because there's so many people that just roll over and die.
Yeah.
And not physically, but just they quit living life. And like, I always told him that because I was just like, he inspired me, and he was such a light in my life. And I wish we need more people to talk about that in the cowboy world. You know, you've been through these crazy things, like what you've been through, let's talk about it, because that's the world tries to tell you that you're not enough, or like what you've been through doesn't matter. No, somebody else is out there going through the same thing. Like my sis, I have writing, and it always starts out sis, and it's a writing, and it was me writing to the younger version of myself. Like, and I see so many young women going through the same stuff. You know, they were raised, their dad was the safer parent, they were raised masculine, they never learned to value themselves. Like, and I hope that I can teach those, like, open the door for those young women. And like, I talked about this with somebody who's done crazy, like accomplished crazy things the other day. I don't mind taking the punches if it's going to open the door for other women to come behind me and be able to have it easier.
Yeah.
Because that's the hard thing about being a woman who steps out and does things differently.
Yes.
Like, you are going to have to work harder and do things differently, especially in a man's world. Like, my dad used to say this all the time, and it's probably one of the best pieces of advice I've ever done. He goes, you can do anything a man can do, but act like a woman when you do it. Like, act like a lady. And that was powerful advice for me, because I never tried, like, even though I was heavy in my masculine, I didn't try to be a man.
Yeah.
And it was one of those things, like, it's a cool time for women right now, because I think God is doing the entrepreneurship. I know so many women who are stepping out and starting businesses, like doing crazy cool things. But like, understand that your oil is going to come from your crushing, and like, keep going back to God. Like, that crushing is building something in you, and understand, like, those hard times, you might be opening the door for the next little girl down the road to be able to accomplish her dreams. You might be opening the door, you know, you never know. The first girl who, you know, roped or whatever, you're opening the door for other people.
Yes.
And so, I don't know, that was my, I hope that I can help somebody else who's gone through the same things.
I love that. I love that so much. Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy. So wild. Huh. What time is your thing?
6.
Oh, it's been 20 minutes. We have to do a part 2 on this.
We end up talking for today.
We really sat and talked for 2 hours. Like, it was so weird. Brian's like, how was your coffee date thing? I was like, oh my God, we talked for 2 hours. And he's like, wasn't that the first time you like actually met her? I was like, yeah.
Well, like, there's so much good stuff in here. I'm like, I hope people can.
We're going to have so many reels to make from this episode.
I love it.
Oh, but in all seriousness, I really appreciate you coming over, and
yeah, thank you for having me. This was a
Absolutely.
cool conversation, because it's like, same thing. I hope that you're year 5, I'm year 1. Hopefully somebody can see the value in it and start following their path, because I have a girl that's like been like my daughter, and it was a joke because I lived with her mom, and like, there was a Christmas card that got addressed weird. So she always jokes that I'm her dad, which is really weird. But like, I pushed her to go to vet school. Like, she wanted to go to vet school. And it was like, you know, I didn't have somebody to tell me, just keep taking one step, like one step. And like, she has her white coat ceremony next. And she's like, I'd really like if you flew out to be in, and like, how can I help the next generation believe in themselves enough to go on? And that's, I don't know. It starts with believing in yourself, but
yes,
how can we open the door?
Yeah. No, I love that, because I think that type of inspiration needs to be put out there.
Yeah. Especially men need it too. But as women are being called on more, we've got to have that community and that support.
Yes, I love that. Well, if people want to follow you on social media, what is your Facebook page?
The Ranchy Redhead Media Co.
What's your website? Same thing?
Yep.
Perfect. They can follow you down here in Wickenburg. Are you down here all season?
Yeah, I'll be here till April and then either head back to Colorado or California. So
just kind of up in the air.
Yeah, we'll see where life takes me.
I love that. It's kind of where we're at too. Like, don't know where we're going.
I think that's the cool thing about snowbirding though, is like, and coming down here, is it opens. We were talking about opening up opportunity. You never know who you're gonna meet. And I have a friend who is a crazy successful business owner, and we were talking about this because people kept asking me, "What's your plan? What's your plan? What's your plan?" And I had so much anxiety about it. And he goes, "Jaylene, it doesn't matter what your plans are. Like, it's God's plan. And like, it's cute to think you have the control over it.
That's cute of you to think that." Well, yeah. I always was a plan person. And I had to eat a lot of crow over the years because I was never going to be like the person that did this. Well, God has a sense of humor sometimes because he was like, "Do you want to bet, child?" Like, oh man.
Yeah. 100%. Like, never say never. And the power of like what you speak. That's been something like I've been trying to work on that because same thing. I never was going to do a lot, and I've been in those situations, and it helps you have grace for the people that you said that to.
Yeah. Yes, it does. Every lesson comes at a cost, and sometimes it's humility.
Amen. It's funny because I was laughing because I missed Bible study the other night, and I was listening to Joyce Meyer, and it was a sermon on humility, and it was like God was just smacking me upside the head, and I was like, "Okay, I hear you."
Well, thanks again for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again.
Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks for riding along with me on Horses, Hope, and Hustle. If you found even a little bit of inspiration or grit here today, share it with a friend, leave a review, or tag us on socials, and keep showing up for what truly matters. Until next time, stay true, stay tough, and keep hustling.